Hey everyone. Hey, real quick. I just want to check to see if you're a member of the Coaches site, because if you're not and you're tuning into the show, well, you probably should be. There is no cost or commitment to sign up, and you're going to be connected to a community of over 35,000 coaches representing 54 countries and 25% of the hockey coaches globally. Click the link in the show description below to get started. We'll even throw in a 10-day free trial so you get full access to our suite of premium content featuring some of the top coaches in the game, including many who have appeared on the Glass Now podcast. If you love coaching, you're going to love the Coaches site. And now, on to the show.
Coach, how are you doing? How's your day?
Great, it was good. Just got done with 2 practices with the guys, so excited to be here. Thanks for everyone coming and spending time, and hopefully it can help give some insights on some questions that Aaron's going to ask, and if anyone has any questions on certain things, feel free when we're done. So glad to be here, and hopefully you guys are having a great day.
I thought we could start here, just in general. Just looking it up, this is, I think, your 10th NHL training camp. Observations so far?
I think our camp's been good. It's one of the things we talk with our players about training camp is it's probably the most time where we can practice with the players in the NHL season and try to have a partnership that, we're going to make it a demanding camp and really have a combination of conditioning, implementation of systems, and also, pushing the guys competitively in certain situations at a high level. And right now it's been good. I think that we're lucky because our leadership, our best players are our hardest workers. Guys like Boldy, Kaprizov, Faber, Eck, Spurgeon, that whole crew, those guys are on top of the details of the game, but they practice at a high level and they kind of drive camp. So I think we're a little over a week into camp now, so I think we're in a good spot.
You mentioned the word partnership. How do you frame that, or how do you build that with your players?
Well, I think today's coaching, probably at any level, is that it's not just the coach and then the players do whatever the coach says. I think, part of it now is talking to players about a partnership that, we have an expectation and a standard of, for example, for training camp, what our plans are laid out. We explain it to them. We talk to them about what we're going to do each day, how hard it's going to be, what days we're really going to push them, and explain that there's a method to the madness. We're going to push them really, really hard early, then there'll be a day off, then there'll be a middle segment that's very intense, which we're in right now. We'll give them another day off, and then the last 4 days of training camp will probably be cut down to our last team, and we'll push them hard again, but we'll shorten the practice length a little bit, and then we give them a couple days off, and then the season starts. So the reason I lay that out is that's the partnership, is to say that here's what we have planned, here's why we're doing it, but in order for this to work, that they have to buy into the competitive level that we need to play with and practice with and push each other. And we said every team, there's 31 other teams that are in training camp. How can we together make this a competitive advantage for us? Yeah. It has to be done with our plan as coaches, but also the buy-in and the effort that the players need to put forward.
So, I was looking back. This is, I believe, your 10th NHL training camp. So 10 years ago, you would have been in New Jersey. Games changed a lot since then. If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what would you tell them to focus on in training camp, to get your team ready for the playoff or for the start of the regular season?
I would say not too much has changed, but I would say that I think one of the phrases we use with them is that we're going to give them sufficient structure, but we're going to also allow them to play in their instincts. So I think I probably mixed in a little bit more as opposed to, so much the system aspect of training camp every day, that there's a piece of a system that we're going to work on, but a majority of the practice is game playing. 2-on-2s, 3-on-2s, 3-on-2s with the back checker. Maybe it's defensive zone coverage, into a neutral zone forecheck. Yeah. Where you're letting them, you're giving them the structure, but you're also allowing them to be able to play in their instincts. And the whole practice is not systematic. The practice is a combination of systems and identity and skill versus just structure.
How do you make, because I hear like the 1-on-ones, 2-on-ones, et cetera, and you could see how easily that could just be like a flow practice, right? How do you make those drills competitive, or maybe install some habits and details so that they're still, that might lend themselves to the system part of the game or the team part of the game?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think sometimes it's, you do one puck drills or you do gameplay, but it's just playing.
Yeah.
So, for example, if we do one-on-ones, we'll have a one-on-one, say, up the ice, and if the defenseman does a good job, just say he kills the play, stick on puck, the play dies, we'll send a second puck in for, say, a down low one-on-one.
Yeah.
So we'll try to make it where it's not just a one-and-done situation, especially in training camp. One of the things we try to do, and I've always been a big believer in the beginning of the season, is when you want to get the work ethic and the habits in your team, that every drill isn't just, it's just like they come down and shoot and go back to a line. There's always a second component to it, whether it's a second puck, whether it's a back check, whether it's a transition.
Yeah.
There's always something that we add into it. So I'll give you another example. For if you're going to say do 2-on-2 continuous, so 2 forwards are going down the ice versus 2 defensemen, puck goes in the offensive zone. When they get in the offensive zone, if the offensive players are doing a good job, we'll tell them we would like to, if you can attack low, so it's 2-on-2, if you can attack low and you have good strong puck presence, or you're over the puck and you can attack offensively, do that. If the defending team does a good job, then we'd like you to now move the puck low to high. Right now we work on getting to the net, and now we have 2 defensemen at the blue line.
Yeah.
So now you're playing the game, but you're also putting reads in for them.
Yeah.
The second thing we would do is say 3-on-2 continuous. We would go 3-on-2 continuous. We'd like to have an entry. If we have time and space, we want to make a play off the rush. If they don't and the D do a good job, puck managed, puck goes in. Now we kind of get into a forecheck situation. When it's 3-on-2 down low, we would say that we want to make sure that we call it a honey hole or an F3 soft area, that we want to have some positioning offensively, even though it's a 1-puck drill.
Yeah.
So we would like to, maybe it's below the goal line, hit the guy in the slot, shot, and we would be able to play it that way. So we try to put some expectations of what they're doing in the drill, that it's not just up and down competing, that there's high level of compete, but there's also a process that we're looking for as they continue to play.
When you're running practice and you've got that level of intensity, are you going to the board? Or how do you communicate the plan and keep things moving in practice?
A lot of times what we'll do is we'll have, say, a 10 to 12 minute video session, and we'll basically show things on the video that we're going to work on specifically in practice. Then usually I'll give them, we videotape all of our practices. So a lot of times we might have the first 3 drills either they're on a loop in the room where the guys can see them, or I may show them in the video really quick. Hey, here's the setup. This is what we're looking for. These are the first 3 drills of practice, and then we just go. If we're doing 1-puck drills, I'd never go to the board. A lot of times I'll stop it and give them a break, and I'll talk to them about what they are or not doing. I think the one thing when you do in practice is you want to be able to correct them, but I think for the pace of the practice and things like that, I think if you can stop and have a couple quick teaching points, but then let them keep going, not stop it every time there's a mistake. If you say we're doing 2-on-2s, we don't want turnovers at the offensive blue line, and a couple guys turn the puck over, I would kind of let it go a little bit. But if it happens repetitiously, I might just stop it real quick, address it, and then we go right back into playing.
Got it. So, like in that sort of environment, you can imagine your assistant coaches are really important in that communication process. So when you're structuring practice, how do you delegate responsibility? Because I would imagine, training camp's different, but in a typical day, you probably have, 5 coaches on the ice?
Yep, we spend a lot of time on that. One of the things for us is we have such limited practice time, and training camp we have longer practices. But even if our guys, like if there's, they're no different than younger players. Like their attention spans are limited. So and they have opinions. So if they're waiting around too long, then we'll hear about it. But we try to be really organized. So we always sit down, we plan practice. One of our video coaches will type up the practice for us. we all have little cards. Like I wear like almost like a quarterback thing. We'll have like a little card that has practice on it that we kind of slide in there.
Yeah.
And on that, when we go through the practice, we'll talk about which coach is going to run the drill, where the pucks need to be, what the teaching points will be. And then always, like if the assistant coaches are in the lines, so we don't have to go to the board, that even if, you know, something's going on, I'll just say, okay, we're doing tracking shots. As the players in the line, the assistant coaches are telling them, like, we're going, you know, you're going behind the net, you're going here, let's be ready to go right away. So the assistant coaches are very active. And it's the same thing if we do breakouts, instead of making it 5-on-0, but we don't want to tax the D, we might have our coaches take line rushes. So it's very specific on what we're all going to do, who's going to run what, where the pucks go, what the timing of the drills will be, and then we just try to keep it right on pace.
Okay, so I want to go back to something you said. So you mentioned, like, you know, if the players are standing around too much, you guys hear about it. That resonates with me. I got a 6-year-old. Standing around is kryptonite. It goes from hockey practice to herding cats real quick.
Yeah.
What else do you think your players would say that they expect or want in practice?
I think that they want the details of the practice. I think that they like it when it's competitive. For us, it really varies on the time of year. But I would say, like in training camp in the beginning of the year, when we have some time to practice, that they would rather do competitive things than just flow drills.
Yeah.
I think later in the year, when they're tired and they're banged up, and we're middle of February and we're in game 68 or 69, I think it's then we really have to back off the competitiveness, and it's more about execution.
Got it. You know, you've got a pretty experienced staff, a lot of good hockey minds in that room. You've been together now for, you know, a couple seasons. You know, when you first come together, you've obviously got your ideas, you got the drills that you like. You got other coaches that might have some different ideas. What's the process to kind of pool those all together? And maybe, we always talk about a team identity, but I think oftentimes too there's an identity within the coaching staff in terms of how they roll practice out. How did you guys sort of go through that collaboration process?
Well, I came from Nashville, and I came basically in season in November, and I inherited the whole staff, and 2 of the guys are still with me now. And so I had kind of a drill. I had it from Nashville, all of the practice drills broken down by scenario. So when we came in as a new coach, it was easy for me to sit with the coaches versus drawing on a board to say, okay, we're going to work on speed breakouts. This is what it is. This is what it looks like. And then in the beginning, usually it was basically a lot of the stuff that I had done. And then in the off season, we sit in the off season and we do different projects. We study different parts of the game. But practice is another part of it to say is, okay, how can do you have a better breakout drills or better forecheck drill? I'll ask them all the time if we're doing 3-on-2. I love one puck drills. I think that they're great for the game, for conditioning, for hockey sense. So I'll ask them, do they have similar ones, but also what adaptations would they make? And then we just kind of mesh it along as we move forward.
Got it. I'm just curious. I mean, it's obvious based on the terminology, but just can you define like one puck drill?
Yep. A one puck drill would basically be, as I said before, where 2 forwards start in an end versus 2D. We practice a lot in 2 colors, so it could be 2 white forwards versus 2 green defensemen.
Yeah.
They'll go down 2-on-2. Once they get into the offensive zone, then 2 white forwards will come off the bench to support the 2 white defensemen, and then 2 green D will come up, and then they'll play. The original guys will play, say, 2-on-2 down low. If the defending team gets the puck, they break it out to their guys, and then they go back down.
So theoretically, the whole team could go through on one puck.
Yes.
Got it. When you guys get back in the coach's office, how do you evaluate practice?
It always comes down to me for the speed and the energy of the practice is probably most important. I would say execution, meaning our passing, our shooting, the crispness in how we move the puck, regardless of the drills. And then we would talk about if it was highly competitive, it would be that. If it was some system and structure, the execution and the detail of that. How are all those components? And then a lot of times we'll talk about certain players. That's one thing that we do talk a lot about after practice. Is there anyone that very good and pushed the practice. Like we talk about having practice drivers, and we would recognize those guys the next day. The other one is there's guys that if they didn't have good habits or they weren't really working as hard in the drill or whatnot, that we would address that as well.
Well, just on that note, I'm curious from the audience, how many of you videotape practice? Couple? Okay. You mentioned you put the drills on loop, but like how often would you go back and review the practice tape for just, what you recommend, just to get a feel for the team and making sure that maybe what you saw at ice level is what is reflected on tape?
In training camp, we do it a little bit. In the regular season, we don't, just because we don't have as much time.
Fast. Yeah.
But we do go through practice. We have a video coach as well that cuts all the drills. And then the one thing that we do too is, over the course of the season, we'll use a lot of the same drills. I know sometimes people say, well, players will get bored. You can use the same drills, but they're different concepts. So they always know where to go and what lines and where it goes through. But, one day you might work on, maybe you come in and a guy shoots the puck and goes to the corner and he's going to move it low to high to the defenseman and it's a D shot. We might come back the next day, do the same drill, but we'll say, okay, now we're going to add, the shooter's going to shoot, he's going to go to the corner, now he's going to climb the wall, a coach is going to wall him off, our D will now shift to the middle, so we work on another concept. So we don't have to spend a lot of time at the board. We spend more time on the concepts of what we're going to do. And that way they don't get bored, but the practice really goes through and they're concentrating more on the concept than a quote unquote new drill.
I'm curious. I mean, you spent a lot of time with the U.S. National Development Team program, obviously in an environment where you're getting a lot more practices, more of a weekend league. That same sort of principle, would you have implemented that in terms of having maybe not a huge variety of drills, but sort of building off, the same ones but in different scenarios?
Yeah, the one thing in the national program and in the American League, we had a lot more practice time.
Yeah.
So we would incorporate like forward and defense skills a lot more than we do in the National Hockey League. But yes, we would keep a lot of the same style of drills and then change the concepts, because I think we talk a lot of times with our players too, is that we want to be a hard-working team and want to be hard to play against, but hard work only gets you so far. You have to play smart and you have to play the game with purpose. So I think trying to practice with purpose and not just worried about like the drills, it's really the concepts in the drills you're trying to get across. And I think that helps with hockey sense and helps with options as well.
I would imagine it would be so easy, because training camp is so condensed, to just, want to feed the players with a fire hose of information and try and get it all implemented before, puck drops on opening night. I don't know how realistic that is, but are there certain parts of the games or maybe just certain habits that you say, hey, like, we're not going to get to everything, but like we better make sure these area of the games are tight for opening night?
Yeah, exactly. We work on kind of the main systems. We believe that the way we break out of our zone is the engine that drives our team. So we work a lot on breakouts, where the puck is dumped, what the options are going to be. When we're playing in D-zone coverage, how do we get out of D-zone coverage? We talk a lot about in the beginning of training camp is that when the puck enters our zone, how fast can we get it out?
Yeah.
Whether that's a breakout or whether it's D-zone coverage, coming out of D-zone coverage, what are our routes that we want to defend, but we want to defend with the purpose of transitioning to offense.
Sure.
So we would work a lot on breakouts, a lot on defensive zone coverage, coming into defensive zone coverage. Those sort outs, probably as we all know, are in summer hockey, it's all swoop and swing, and now we got to come in and, in that zone, there's responsibility.
Yeah.
We'll work on forechecking, and we'll work on rush defense, how we sort out,
define rush defense.
So rush defense would start basically in the offensive zone, coming out, so the other team's coming up the ice. What is our back checker, our F3 tracker, and our D reads?
Yeah.
If we can slide and squeeze, if we have a tight gap, bad gap, if the other team's pushed us back, and our D-men are basically, at the far blue line versus with a stretch player, and the other team's coming up the ice and they enter our zone and they have all different type of kickouts. how do we cover those? So we try to get those things really buttoned up going into the season.
You talked about, you want to play fast, you want to practice fast. How do you, and again, you don't have a lot of time, especially in the regular season. How do you start practice to sort of, I think both from just getting the players engaged, but also just, these are Ferraris you're dealing with, making sure that their body's in a good spot to go out there and, lean in.
We tell them, the way we do ours is we'll have a meeting. So say we have a 10 o'clock practice, we'll have a 9 o'clock meeting. Yeah, and say that goes anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. We tell them, then they have an off-ice warm-up. And we'll tell them in the meeting, hey, we're going to start practice with a small game. So you've got to be ready to go now. If we're going to do that, our goalies will go on, say, 15 minutes early. Yeah. So the goalies are warmed up. And but we'll prep them. A lot of times we'll start with a small game. Sometimes it could be competitive. Other times we try to get some warm-up drills where there's, say 8, 9 guys going at the same time. So as soon as they hit the ice, everyone's there's a lot of motion. There's a lot of things that are going to go on for them. So the practice starts where everyone's getting warm quick.
Yeah. It's a long season. I think, everybody's season, there's ebbs and flows to it, and we're coaching human beings, and not everybody shows up, as a 10 out of 10 every game or every practice. When you have a player where perhaps you recognize that maybe you're not getting the best effort, or their attention to detail is not where you like it, how do you approach that?
That's a great question. I would say probably that's where I've grown as a coach compared to how the training camp has changed. We had a lady in Nashville who was she's a sports psychologist. She's excellent. She used to be an ex-FBI agent, and I wound up creating a good relationship with her when I was coaching there. And one of the things that kind of the quotes I live by now is, if you want the performance to improve the relationship. Whether that's your relationship with the team or whether it's your relationship with an individual player. And so, for example, I would say 90% of my job, I think probably all of our jobs is that. If the team isn't performing well, why is it? And if a player isn't performing well, you need to be able to, I would focus more on the relationship. Yeah. Or with the team or the individual versus coming across harder and demanding. Yeah. I think that's something that is really, really important. I live by that. Even if there's a guy struggling, like Zeev Bouillon, you guys probably all know Zeev. Zeev had a really tough night the other night, -4. It's in the paper. And it's
he's a young kid, he's a teenager.
He's 19, but the thing is that you have two ways. You can come in and you can, sit in the coach's room and criticize him, this and that. But then we had a day off yesterday, so how's he feeling? Yeah. Right? So it's just reaching out to him and say, hey, listen, this is what happened. These are some things that need to change. But, players appreciate that. And then today he comes back. He's got a little more energy. He's better. But if we want him to change some of the things that he's doing from college hockey to the NHL, where we need to count on him, it just can't be, I'm the coach and he's the player, you do what I say. We've got to have a relationship, and that's how you're going to get the most out of the player.
I always wonder, again, it amazes me, the duration of time that you're given to squeeze in 82 games. And one of the things that, I always consider, for anybody that's coached junior hockey, you can bring somebody to the front of the bus. There's those moments where you can build those relationships. What have you learned about, how have you found perhaps different opportunities, I guess, to build those relationships and have those touch points with the players?
Yep, I've done it numerous ways. I think that days off are opportunities. A couple times, a lot of the players live out in Edina. If there's a particular player that's struggling, I might just say, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Yeah. And you want to go meet at a coffee, and I'll drive. Is Matamidi here? No, I'm the Matamidi guy. I'll go to Edina, meet them at a coffee shop, possibly in their neighborhood, and sit down and talk with them, spend time with them there. This summer, I try to do a lot in the summer as well. Like Tarasenko was a new player. He's been on 5 teams in the last few years, but he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He's a guy that's got a lot of experience. I flew down to Fort Lauderdale this summer and went to his house, had dinner with him, his family, met his 3 sons. His wife made a huge Russian dinner. And I really got to know him. It wasn't about hockey. It was about why did he, in his mind, why has he moved from team to team? What worked? Why did it work in St. Louis and Florida? Why didn't it work in Detroit and Ottawa? Learn about his upbringing, his background. Like, he's a fiery player. He's had a lot of success, but he's one, from what I understand, on the bench, he'll slam the stick, do this. And we talked, like, why do you do that? He talked about his dad and how he was raised and his background in Russia. And it's investing the time in getting to know the player, because when Billy signs him, we have to get the most out of him.
Yeah.
So, that's one example. The other one is we go on the road quite a bit. I might grab the captains and say, hey, let's go grab dinner tonight. Instead of going out to eat with the coaches, I'll go to dinner with the captains, or, all those little components. In the summertime, I might have some guys come over. Like one time in Nashville, being at training camp, I invited all the new guys over to my house. We had a little cookout, got to know them. And then it was all the older guys and their wives and kids. And you just have to try to find, probably at every level, but at our levels, it's one thing for me that I think I've learned that is probably one of the most important things in coaching, is that you have to invest the time. And that was the other one. There was 2 for me, was if you invest as much time in emotional deposits as you do getting ready for meetings, practices, and games, you'll be a better team. Yeah. You'll be a better coach. And then improve the relationship, improve the performance. So I've tried to take that as much time as we plan practice and do things, that trying to spend some time with players in different areas. Yeah. The team, being visible with the team. The assistant coaches can run some meetings. All those components, I think, are really important in today's day and age player, probably regardless of the age.
I would agree. Lots to unpack there, but I'd be curious, what's on the grill at a John Hynes cookout?
Ooh, burgers.
Yeah.
Probably burgers, brats, some chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to grill, but usually it's in the off season, so they can eat a little less than what they would in the season.
Well, but I think there's a really important theme here, and I mean, just in the work that we do, we hear more and more of this. It's like, nobody wants to be the player in the dressing room when one of the assistants comes in and says, hey, John, coach wants to see you. Like, it's kind of the principal's office. And I think, whether it's over food or just finding different environments, like, just the conversations just inherently change, I sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think the more that they know you're a coach, but you're a person.
Yeah.
Right? So then at times you can be as hard as you want on the team, on a player eventually, but I think but they know that it stops there. Like, it's about the hockey, but then there's another component, to their life. And also that they know that you're not just the guy that stands behind the bench and, runs practice and runs the meetings, and that's the only time they see you is when you're in front of them. It's that they see that you have a life as well.
Yeah.
I think it's important in the development of your relationship with the players, but probably at younger levels, it's the development of the human side of it too.
Totally. New Jersey, Nashville, now Minnesota. Just along your coaching journey, have you had the opportunity to connect with coaches from other sports, or perhaps even go and observe practice, training camps, things like that?
I have, yeah. I've been very lucky on that. So I was most football. Like when I was in New Jersey, I was able to go the Jets, Giants, Eagles, and Red Bull soccer. And then I went to the Atlanta Falcons. And then when I was in Nashville, it's really the Titans and the Predators for the most part. Yeah. So I got to know Mike Vrabel really well. And
no way.
But the difference was, like, it wasn't just going to practice.
Yeah.
And being on the sideline, like you see kind of coaches do that. Like I asked, can I come in OTAs?
No way.
Where you can come in and specifically said, can I go in the offensive coordinator meeting? Can I see your team meeting? Can I see how you run your coaches meetings?
No way.
So it was really beneficial because you could see, how the special teams guys do it, what the offensive coordinator does, their smaller groups, what the head coach does in front of the whole team. Yeah. And then also how does he manage all of his coaches and how do they communicate? Yeah. And I found it really, anytime those are really beneficial. Like Kevin Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, he's been over a couple times. I haven't had a chance to go to the Vikings, but I would love to go and see those guys, how they communicate. It's not, and again, it's not about, I'm not learning football.
Totally.
It's just the operation. How do they run meetings? How do they communicate, talk, deal with their players, and get a vibe of how the building goes. And you can always pick different ideas or slogans. So I try to do that every summer. Yeah.
You touched on, I guess, projects for you and your staff in the summertime. Again, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any examples, whether it's from this past summer or previous seasons, of what those projects might look like?
Yeah, we'll do different things. There's probably every season, like all of us, there's components of our game that we really like, and we're like, okay, we're going to stay with this, and we're going to do that again next year. But we might say, look at some offensive or defensive things. Like we were really good last year in zone 1 defense, meaning in the D zone, in and around the slot area, the house, however you want to call it. We defend that very well. But we weren't great on line rush defense. We allowed too many entries. Yeah. So then we'd go and we'd study, okay, let's look at the top 5 deny entry teams that we would watch. Is it a system thing? Is it a talent thing? Is it details of the game? So we'll pick certain components of our game that we want to study, and then we'll kind of review those like at development camp in the summer, and then we'll determine whether we want to make changes to our system or things that we want to teach basically by later in August.
Got it. I look back, you played collegiate hockey at Boston University under the great Jack Parker. I'm just curious if you could touch on that relationship and maybe the influence he's had on the coach you are today, and perhaps any other people along your journey that have been really influential. Yeah,
Jack Parker, he's going to be inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame this October. But the only piece of advice he gave me when I get into coaching, I said, Coach, what's the best piece of advice I can get? He said, get off the bus with the best players.
There you go. Okay, there you go. Conference done. There we go.
No, Jack was great. I got injured my senior year, and I knew I wanted to coach and teach. I actually wanted to coach and teach high school. I majored in my high school coach was a guy by the name of Mike Gaffney. Had a huge impact on my life. Coaches growing up always did, but he was someone I really admired, and other than my dad. And he was a guidance counselor. He was a hockey coach. And I went to BU and I majored in education, and my goal was to teach and coach high school. And then I got hurt, and there was a graduate assistant position that was open, thankfully at Boston University. And Coach Parker said, if this position's open, if you want it. And so I got right into it, and then I kind of got the itch. I was like, well, maybe I want to coach a little bit higher with this opportunity and not teach. But continue to coach, and he really opened the door for me. So I was a graduate assistant at Boston University, and then from there I went to Mike Boyle was the strength and conditioning coach as well, he was the strength and conditioning coach that started at the national program. So I left BU, and then I was doing the weight room. I was doing strength and conditioning and a graduate assistant coach at the national program, and that's kind of how I got started. So I was fortunate to have a great mentor, and those doors open that way.
Just looking back on your career, John, this is maybe just a bit of a selfish question from my own end, but the one thing that really stands out to me about your career, I mean, you talk about going as a graduate assistant. I know that you've got a young family that's been along this ride with you. I know that when you were the national team program, you took the jump to go be an assistant coach in the American League, which from my perspective, that's both those are examples of betting on yourself, and easy to do when it's just you. A little different to do when you've got young kids. I'd just be curious, how have you made some of these decisions and navigated in your career? Because as we know in this profession, there's no sure things.
No, certainly not. I would say that I never, when I got into it, it wasn't like I wanted to be a coach, head coach, and that wasn't my goal, to be honest. It was probably, originally it started out as I wanted to be a high school coach and teach, and then I got involved in college hockey, and when I went out to the national program, I absolutely, as a young coach, it's a fantastic program because you see college hockey, international hockey, junior hockey, and you're with two different staffs, and it was like it was like a hockey junkie, So I really enjoyed that. And then I just was trying to find my way. I left the national program. I went to UMass Lowell for a year. College hockey, I wasn't sure. It was definitely what I wanted to do. I wasn't too into the recruiting. I loved coaching. I wasn't so much into the recruiting. And then I went back to the national program as an assistant coach with Mike Eves. Then I went with Mike to Wisconsin as an assistant. And then again, I loved it, but I was a young guy, and I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if I want to stay here and be comfortable, because it was University of Wisconsin, one of the best places you can coach. And I always had an itch, and the job opened back at the national program. Yeah. So I went back as a head coach, and then at that point in time, I loved what I was doing. I didn't really think about how do I get here. It was just where I was where I was coaching, and I really enjoyed it. And then I was at the national program for 6 years, and I was just like, I'm not so sure I want to be. At that point in time, I'm like, maybe I need to move on and get a different challenge. And college hockey didn't really, to me as a coach, I love coaching. I didn't necessarily like the recruiting, as I said. And maybe I want to get into pro hockey. And then a job opened at Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, in the American League. And funny story though, I had just re-signed a contract. I had 2 young daughters, new house. My father-in-law just fixed up the whole basement, did everything. And I went after the Wilkes-Barre job, and then I got it. And I had a 3-year contract, 2 young daughters, brand new house. And I had to take a $60,000 pay cut on a 1-year contract to go to Wilkes-Barre. And I called them, my parents were like, what is wrong with you? Like, you have a family, you can't do this, blah, 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 blah. I asked my wife, thank God, she was like, hey, listen, the girls are young, like, let's try it, let's do it. Yeah. And if I had her support, I probably wouldn't have done it. But then we moved to Wilkes-Barre on a 1-year contract, and then it worked out, then I got the head job there, and then it kind of just, it's sometimes a little bit of the risk. I guess my thing, I'd say follow your passion.
Totally.
And sometimes I do think in this profession, you have to bet on yourself at times and be uncomfortable to advance if that's something that you want to do.
That's great advice. Coach, it's been great.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you.
Cheer up for John Hynes.
See you guys. Good luck this year.